Good evening, everybody, and welcome again into our show, Disney Dialogues, here on the evening on a Thursday night when we're looking forward to talking all about the Tiki Room. Jen, are you excited about tonight? Oh, muted. That's
I'm so excited. Just talking backstage for just a few minutes with Ken. I'm really excited for this. So I'm excited for everyone to hear all the great things that we have for tonight.
it's going to be a fun show where we're going to learn not just about an attraction, not just about a book, but we're going to dig deep into the author and talk about him tonight and his 10-year plus track to make this happen. And I'm excited because before the birds sang words is going to take you a lot on a trip that's going to tell you not just about an attraction that started in Disneyland, but how it led to where we are today in many opportunities with Disney. So if you're ready, I say let's do the introduction because I want to get our guest in here and really hear what he has to say. Uh,
Let's get started.
I'm ready.
Tonight's guest has built a remarkable career inspired by a lifelong love of animation, Disney, and theater that began in childhood.
Hmm.
His story work has appeared in 3 Academy Award-winning animated feature films, including Toy Story 3 and Up for Disney and Pixar, as well as Shrek from DreamWorks.
That's cool.
Those are some pretty good
Yeah,
movies.
big names.
His animation career also includes work on some of television's most iconic shows, including The Simpsons, Ren and Stimpy, and The Fairly OddParents, where he has contributed multiple creative roles.
Impressive.
A native of Los Angeles, he has been immersed in the world of Disney since he was young, first visiting Disneyland at just 5 years old and developing a lifelong appreciation for Disney animation and theme park history. Today, he continues to work in animation as a crew member on the hit series Family Guy. So exciting. He is a 2-time Emmy Award winner and an incredibly talented animation artist.
That's incredible what you just said. You said you said
Yeah,
Simpsons. You said Family Guy, and you said multiple award winning in Emmys. I mean,
two-time Emmy Award winner.
I just
Mhm,
got goosebumps.
I said that. Tonight, Ken joins us to talk about a true passion project of his, a deep dive into one of the most groundbreaking and pioneering attractions in the history of Disney parks, and one of Walt Disney's most hands on creative endeavors.
It's true.
It is our honor to spend time discussing the book Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room Before the Birds Sang Words with our guest tonight. Please help me warmly welcome Ken Bruce to the show.
Ken, welcome in. Hello, sir.
That was a lovely introduction. It's like I so that no. Go on. Go on.
Jen does
That is too kind of you.
Jen does a great job with our introductions
But
every week.
thrilled to be here with you guys for sure. And thank
Well,
you for having me on, Pete and Jen.
absolutely. We're so glad that you're here, and we welcome everybody in the chat and those who will be listening on the podcast platforms. This will be going up at a later date, and we appreciate all those people jumping in. If you have any questions, of course, drop them in the chat if you're with us live tonight, or leave them on the YouTube channel afterwards, and we're glad to get to it. I think there's so much to get into tonight, and so many places we want to go. But I think it'd be better if we start out with just kind of like just a simple general introduction for you. We don't have, and whatever you want to throw out. We've got, I'm sure, some friends in here tonight that are meeting you for the first time, and I always like to give them a little bit, there before we go. So, so I'll throw it to you, Ken.
Hello, everybody. Yeah. A little bit about me, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think Jen, I can't, I, yeah, a little about me. All right, blah, 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 blah. Jen said it all. I
Okay.
think, animation, for, my entire career. CalArts before that to learn. I always wanted to be in animation. I think if you had asked me at 7 years old, I would have said, I want to be an animator.
Wow.
Because I was really serious about it. So what do you do when you get, into high school? You realize, well, the art school to go to learn animation, at least for me, was like, well, of course, Walt Disney's Cal Arts, which he funded with his, with his own money, family money. They didn't have an animation program when Cal Arts began,
Right.
but eventually they did, and I was, ready to go, and that was wonderful. I found my tribe there, and then from there it was getting into the business at pretty much a really good time to get into the business, because kind of the golden age was the Renaissance was about to happen with Little Mermaid and the Simpsons and all the Disney musicals. It was not, when I was going to Cal Arts, it wasn't necessarily a pretty great market. It was we were
Hmm.
very unsure about what we were going to be doing after that,
Okay.
but it was a good time to leave Cal Arts because that's when it was all happening. Yeah.
Well, we're going to get into a lot and a lot more tonight, and
So
I'm
that's
gonna
just animation, but then
that.
but of
Well, we're
course
going to
my
talk that more.
Disneyland,
We
yeah,
we've got a
my
lot.
Disneyland interest was huge. Yeah,
Was huge. Well, I'm going to
as well.
throw it over to my partner, and let's get it rolling.
Yeah.
All right. So let's continue talking about animation then. It's been
Okay.
a part of your life from a very young age, from discovering its early impact on in your childhood to studying at Cal Arts and eventually building a career wearing many creative hats across multiple studios. Can you walk
Yes.
us through how the world of animation shaped your path and how those early experiences influenced the career you ultimately pursued?
Well, I think again it goes back to when I was a kid watching, television, and I was really aware of uh, the difference between, say, a Disney animated film like Pinocchio or 101 Dalmatians or the animation in Mary Poppins, with, say, something like the Flintstones or the Jetsons, which
Hmm.
had their place too. But I was like, I want to be a part of the good stuff. There was something, and I can't explain it. There were times when I would go at a very young age to see an animated movie, and I couldn't tell you what the plot was, but there was something so magical about that 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 moving hand drawn look and the way the films were art directed that was magic for a kid. So,
Yeah.
as I grew into it, I was like, I really want to see if I can be a part of that. It just took my breath away. Um, so yeah, at a very young age, I'm like, I want to do the quality stuff, the Disney stuff. And I didn't necessarily I had a career at Pixar for a little while, and I did work on a ill-fated project at the Disney Studios that didn't end up happening. But I've been there and worn many different hats in many different animation venues, as you already know. And I don't look back at it and think, wow, look at all the things I did. I actually look back at it with, wow, I was in the room where it happened, and
Right.
wow, how amazing it was to work with the people that I worked with. That's what I really, really remember.
I
And
love.
still to this day, love that I'm a part of a team that is amazing.
That's incredible. Great
Um,
answer. I
yeah.
should also
Mhm.
highlight
Very much.
before I go over to the next thing, Jen, that we're putting all of his links into the chat throughout the night for
Oh
everything
dear.
for purchasing the book and for his Instagram and so much more. All the links will be put in throughout the night. We'll
Mhm.
recap them at
Yeah.
the end. So if you'd like to catch up and follow our guest tonight, we fully encourage that. They'll also, for anyone watching on a replay, the links are posted in the description of the video. And for anybody listening later on podcast platform, they will be in the description there as well. Ken, before we dig into the
Thank
book
you, Pete.
itself, no problem. Before we dig into the book itself, could you take me back maybe in time to the moment the idea for the book came to you? What was the spark that started that creating magic? What was it about the Enchanted Tiki Room that led you there?
These are all great questions. So, um, I knew also at a very young age that the Tiki Room story was perhaps one of the most important stories to be told in regards to the history of Disneyland.
Mhm.
Because quite frankly, there's Disneyland trying to figure out what it was, and then Tiki Room that had a huge hand in answering that question. Um, one of the important stories that I tell in the book is how, even though Disneyland was built on some really good ideas and principles, it was a park that everybody involved, including and especially Walt, were still trying to figure out.
Right.
The park in 1955 you wouldn't recognize, and in fact you'd probably not be that interested in. There were again some core ideas that made it made it ready to launch into the stratosphere. But again, once the Tiki Room happened in 1963, um, including a couple other things, that was a park that finally knew what it was capable of and where it could go, and the tone and mythos that it could embrace moving forward. So, but not only that, it was a huge technological leap for the park. This was before Parks of the Caribbean and Haunted Mansion and Small World and Lincoln and all that. This was the first time an audience sat down and watched something utterly uh, beguiling and mind blowing. um, Context is everything, and I mean the only point there is is to try to get into the mindset of someone in 1963 who's seeing this thing for the first time. There was nothing else on the planet remotely like it. A
Hmm.
fully automated musical review where the performers were birds and flowers and tikis.
Yes.
People didn't know what to make of it. So I knew at a young age, this is a really, really great story to tell, um, on so many levels, on the technological level, on how personal it was to Walt. This was his baby. He called it that. And how it changed everything at the park. So eventually when I got my chance, uh, I was like, I'm going to write this book. And that quite quickly was a chance encounter with a gentleman by the name of Kevin Kidney, who you may or may not know. Him and his partner are responsible for a lot of Disney projects,
Yes.
from collectibles to animatronic costumes to parade floats to all sorts of things. They do amazing work. But I was working at Pixar at the time, and Pete Docter, who now runs the company but was a director back then, said, "Ken, you need to meet Kevin and Jody and just trust me on that." This was at his backyard party, a luau that he was having, and I was like, "Cool, I'll talk to them." And then fate had it that yes, Kevin especially is a huge sort of old school Walt era Disneyland nerd, and we got to talking about all sorts of things, no less our love of the Enchanted Tiki Room. That followed with him admitting that he had amassed over many years a lot of material from the Tiki Room, like ephemera and his little personal collection of fun stuff. And he was like, "I'm happy to share it with you because you're such a fan, and I don't know what." And it's nice that I'm able to share this with you because I don't know anybody that's as interested in it as you are. And Followed by, I don't know what use this is to anybody, perhaps, but unless perhaps they were writing a book.
Right.
And when he said that, I was like, it was like a
Bingo.
thunderbolt hit me
Get you. That's
because
cool.
I thought
Mhm.
that is the book that I'd always wanted to read. I
Mhm.
didn't want, as I've told others, I didn't want, a lovely Disney editions, picture book. I wanted the nuts and bolts, gritty story of how that thing came to be. Because again, everybody involved in it was doing something they had never done before. So that was the book I'd always wanted to read. So once again, I had this amazing collection, which was basically the tip of the great tip of the iceberg start for my research. I was like, if if the book isn't out there and it's the book I've always wanted to read,
Hmm.
and I have this material now, I guess the job goes to me. So it obsessed me, and over time, I'm like, I'm gonna write the book. So I did. Yeah.
That's absolutely. That's amazing. It's amazing what can
Yeah.
happen at a luau.
Yeah, exactly. So it was fateful. So yeah, the first people that I thank are, Pete Doctor for introducing me to Kevin, and of course Kevin as well. So yeah, and I just saw Kevin yesterday for dinner, so that was nice. Um,
Very, very cool.
so yeah, the weird things, the way things start. But again, that was the book I wanted to read so badly, and nobody had written. Nobody.
Love it.
So it's time.
Well,
It's out. Yeah.
I just wanted to jump in and just talk
Yes.
about Walt Disney a little bit,
Yeah.
and his influence in your creative journey. He clearly has influenced you, and this book really gives us a deeper look at the man himself through one of his
Yes.
most beloved projects. So, can you talk about Walt's influence on you personally, and why this particular project felt like the right lens through which to explore his story?
That's a good question. Yeah. Easily, the Enchanted Tiki Room is one of Walt's most personal projects. You can argue Lincoln as well as Carousel Progress were really close to him as well because he was able to just
Mhm.
get sort of jazzed about the subject matter and
Mhm.
and really really enjoyed partaking in helping those projects get off the ground. Why the Tiki Room? Well, that's several layers. One, Walt's affection for any inanimate thing that magically sprung to life goes all the way back to his childhood. Um,
Right.
Mechanical toys, mechanical clocks, any sort of wind up figure that you cranked a dial and then it did something magical. That was huge to Walt. And it feeds into his animated films. Again, animated films are, you know, moving drawings. So that kind of magic always really got him going. So when the opportunity to do a show with a bunch of mechanical birds in a restaurant came past his desk, um, uh, he was all over it. But beyond that, if you actually dig into the show itself, not even thinking about the tiki side of it. Walt loved Hawaii, but he wasn't particularly a huge fan of, tiki bars. Um, but he was a fan of the show that it became and the pieces that influenced it. Because if you boil it down, the Tiki Room is a 3-act vaudeville show.
Yeah.
With a touch of burlesque. It's got all of it. It's got the classical number, which actually isn't there anymore, but it had the classical, number from Offenbach. It had the novelty number in Let's All Sing Like the Birdies Sing. It had the pop song, which was Hawaiian War Chant, and
Mhm.
um, and then each of those with their own, yeah. So and then it had the burlesque girls, the from the Folie Bergère, the pretty girls that would do a dance in a vaudeville show. So it had those sensibilities. So it's very old school in that's the sort of structure and theater theater review sensibility he was very aware of, and it shines all over the Tiki Room. So
I love it.
these are the jokes. These are the jokes that make him laugh. These are the characters that he's familiar with. So very personal to Walt in that way. So the wedding of those sensibilities made it really personal to Walt, and he lit up. He only had so much time in the day, but he gave it all. He gave his all on the Tiki Room because this was so much fun for him, and all the people that worked on him kept surprising him. He would ask for X and he would get XYZ, and then he'd be like, let's wow, let's keep going. So it got crazy.
And
So he
I
loved
think
it.
what
Yeah.
also Ken, and I'd be curious your opinion on this. I think the fact that it's one of his most trusted resources who got behind this project and went crazy trying to support and find stuff in Raleigh Crump. When Raleigh jumped on board, I really think that really invigorated Walt because of his relationship with Raleigh and the creativity that he brought to
Yeah,
everything.
Rolly was kind of like, I don't know. Rolly got away with everything with Walt. People around him that were terrified of Walt were wondering, why does Rolly get to say that and not get smacked across the face? Because Walt gave him that, and I think it was sort of like, this is the son I didn't have, and I like the fact that he's a troublemaker, and I know that he really respects me, and we have fun together. Rolly, Rolly was a huge name on the show, and had everything to do with a lot of those tiki sculpts, but there were others as well. I mean, it's a team effort, and for mechanics, it was Wathel Rogers, and as my dad was an engineer, Wathel was tasked with the impossible, which is like, well, we need an entire room full of mechanical birds, and pretty much all of Wathel's past was, well, in animation, but all he had was just a love of mechanical toys as well, and making them. He had made them as well. So there's Wathel. There's John Hench, who designed the space and kind of curated the 3-act structure and the showiness of it. Mark Davis and Colin Campbell, who designed the characters, and
And we're going to talk
Harry
about some of
Burns,
them
who
later.
figured out new ways of creating animated figures with the feathering and finishing. So everybody had a role to play, and everybody grabbed hands and marched forward together,
And really hit a home
and
run of
I love
suspended
them all.
animation. Yeah, it's great. And we're going to dig into a few of those names a little bit later
Yeah.
here in the show as we go through. I kind of want to go over and talk about a little bit of the process. You spent nearly a decade researching this project, digging into incredible specific details from the genesis of the attraction to the adaptations and renovations over time. During that process, were there moments
Yeah.
when tracking down accurate information became frustrating or overwhelming, or did the new discovery simply fuel your curiosity and drive you to learn more?
Oh, the latter. When you start digging into things, um, uh, invariably rabbit holes open up, and you just are like, I can't not go down that rabbit hole. And then you find out stuff where you're like, I can't not share that information because it seems so a part of the story. Um, my book is structured sort of like, it's about connections. It's about all the pieces that eventually come together on the head of a pin to create something as audacious as the Tiki Room, and how
Right.
it almost feels inevitable in hindsight. Um, and I love those stories. Frustrating? No, well, it's just hard work is what's frustrating. What's frustrating is not being able to get it done as quickly as you like, obviously.
Understandable.
Um, but really joy, like ultimately, and the idea, those names that I just mentioned, the idea that they're no longer with us.
Unfortunately,
Bob Gurr is with us, and he
Bob
did have
still.
he had a few little things he did with the Tiki Room. Um, but yeah, they're gone. So I did feel like, in a sense, they really were over my shoulder, and I wanted to do them proud. And yes, this was Walt's vision, but it was other people's visions as well, and it was other people's creations as well. And we are quick to give Walt credit, and if Walt were here, he'd be like, "Yeah, give me credit." He was a bit of a Walt was a bit of a credit whore. He was frustrated, many of the people around him. Uh, uh, but he became a trademark, and so he knew the value of stamping his name on anything. But in the case of the Tiki Room, it really was deserved, in as much as this was his money, and this was his company, and this was his gamble, and this was his passion. But boy, the other people in the room that got to work and are just as worthy
Yeah,
of applause. Um, yeah,
love that.
they did the hard. Yeah, everybody did the hard work, but boy, yeah, and they had to solve problems that had never been solved before.
Love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I hope that.
That's yeah.
Well, I wanted to talk about about a quarter of the book, I believe,
Yeah.
takes a deep dive into the challenges that Walt faced during the early
Yes.
years of Disneyland, which ultimately led him to
Yes.
shift direction and bring animators and Imagineers in to
Yeah.
elevate the attractions. So, can you talk about how that period of challenge helped shape Disneyland into what it is today, and how this attraction became one of the first major steps in Walt's push toward innovative, cutting edge technology?
Great question. One of the fun things about writing the book was just myth busting, and boy, the Disney universe is full of mythology. Someone tells uh, what they believe is a truth, and then it just becomes truth. So it was really fun for me to bust those open and shatter
Mhm.
those myths. But one of them is the idea that Disneyland opened and it was dream and magic and all is hunky dory and blah blah blah. That's easy to say in hindsight because we know what it became. But
Mhm.
Disneyland was not ready to open on July 17th, 1955, not by
No,
a long shot.
no way.
Um, and you hear about the disastrous opening and you go, oh, pshaw, because the next day everything was working, and no, it was a mess for a while. And in fact, there were weeks on end where the Disneyland was not profitable. It wasn't bringing in enough people. Um, so it was really, really messy. And had you gone there for the better part of 1, 2, 3 years, you'd have seen a lot of empty plots of land and piles of dirt and chain link fence in certain areas and weeds and plantings that hadn't grown in. So what's my point? My point is that Walt was determined for this thing to be successful, and they found a few ways to do that. One of them was actually the invention of date night at Disneyland. The idea of like, well, the youth market doesn't seem to the teenage market wasn't as keen on going to Disneyland as say, the oldsters or the kids. But date night at Disneyland changed everything. That allowed the park to stay open night after night, and it brought in money that that finally started to get show some profitable days, like
Yes.
Mhm.
consistently. So with profit comes money, and with money comes like we need to consistently add new attractions and up our value and have more to do and make sure things aren't broken. Um, um, and then the New York World's Fair was a huge deal in the history of the park.
Okay.
But on the eve of that, because that brought in other people's money to pay for
Right.
projects, that was a deal made in heaven. Oh my God.
Mhm.
But before that, on the eve of that, the Enchanted Tiki Room came to be. There was going to be a Chinese restaurant with a talking head. That whole story's in there. Once the idea for the Tiki Room came by, it shared the same. It shared one thing with the eventually shelved Chinese dinner show, which was a bunch of animated birds, and those birds were working, but everything else for the Chinese dinner show wasn't. So the moment the bird restaurant came through, the Chinese restaurant was shelved. The tiki room became the thing because, well, the tiki room, the birds for the Chinese restaurant show were working. So Walt was confident a restaurant full of chirping birds would work. And then it grew and grew and grew into something, of course, utterly wacky. Um,
Yeah.
but again, with Mark Davis's new figures for the Jungle Cruise, like the elephant bathing pool, which was 1962, and the Cambodian temple, and the African veldt. These were all brand new areas in the Jungle Cruise that had a smile on their face. By the way, this was
Right.
Mark changed the tone of not just the Jungle Cruise, but from then on forward, uh, Disneyland had a smile on its face and a sense of enchantment and a sense of magic, and um, and the Tiki Room was part of that as well. So, and then Walt's gamble with technology that was incredibly space age for the time.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
animate the idea of how do we animate hundreds of characters in a 17-minute musical
Montage. Yeah.
review, you have to realize that before then, the only tech anybody knew that could pull something like that off was Clockwork, and that only had a runtime of maybe a minute or
Yeah.
5 minutes.
40. Yeah.
So how do we do that? And that's when magnetic tape and pulse tech and tone reads and pneumatic systems all came together. All of it all of it from a garage sale that the U.S. Defense Department had
Walt
going.
took advantage of that. He was smart.
Yeah, he's like, that will work. Yeah, Walt, yeah. Well, yeah, his Wathel Rogers did, and then Walt was like, cool. Yeah, let's do it.
Get more from the government. It's great.
Yeah.
So,
and it's funny because the moment it was moved into the Tiki Room to help me animate those birds, it was the moment it was, no longer used by the Defense Department, and already they had a newer, better system. But yeah, it was the garage sale too good for Disney and his people to pass up, and gave us something miraculous that no one had ever seen.
Thank God they did. Before I throw out the next question, I want to just remind everybody that our moderators are dropping the link. You could buy the hardcover tonight, everybody, if you wanted, right there over with the link. Could also go to the autographed version if you want to keep up with it. Of course, we got it on Kindle. And if you do end up buying any of these, or even the Audible version of it, is all available. We're putting all those links in. They're also in the description of the video. We would love for you, if you end up purchasing Ken's piece tonight, let us know in the chat. I'm sure he would love to say thank you to you for supporting him.
And good old-fashioned Amazon.com.
Yes, through the Audible and everything we got. We gotta love Amazon.
Yeah, get the book there too. Yeah.
With Before the Birds Sang, you created an incredible piece of historical storytelling, and and of course, like you said, it helps debunk some of the myths, some of the myths that are out there, and clear away some of the clouds of magic, I think is a good way to put it, and uncover some of the lost details of the project's origin as well.
Yeah.
As you went through this research and journey, what was one or two discoveries that come to mind that generally surprised you the most, that you were like, wow, I wasn't expecting that when I started this journey?
I had so many questions. I mean, the ones that pop to mind are, I know how it started, but, in all the previous, stories about the Tiki Room, it always started with this little mechanical bird that Walt purchased in the 1940 something, with his wife in New Orleans. They were shooting Song of the South at the time, and this was both a research trip and a fun trip to go to New Orleans, and how boom, after the purchase of that, of course the Enchanted Tiki Room opens. Well, that inspired him to fill a room full of birds with a room full of birds. No, not by a long shot. There is a connection to audio animatronics, but it's not particularly heady. Because again, all the way back to Walt's childhood, he loved mechanical toys of all kinds, not just that bird. So that was a fun myth to bust. For me, probably the biggest surprise was finding the actual link. Like, I kept hearing, the technology that helped launch missiles from the Polaris subs had everything to do with the Tiki Room. And I'm like, well, what specifically is that technology, and what was it being used for? And I eventually found that out. And when I found that out, I was like, it was a eureka moment, because no one had ever written about it.
Right.
Which actually was related less to the launch of missiles, though that certainly had a part to do with it. But the ability to record and playback motion in as it related to a gimbal system for a testing platform for the missiles. So it was basically like that thing that makes the Star Tours vehicles rock and rotate. This was a similar device where they recorded the motion of the ocean water, and from that, they would put a missile on a launch missile, a missile on top of that to test it while it was rocking, because that was what was going to be happening when the missile was going to launch in the first place. It was going to not be just sitting on a terrestrial plot of land. It was going to be in the ocean. So they had to test it on while it was rocking.
Moving. That led to
And that was the
some
system.
military.
So yeah.
That led to some military training courses too from that
Oh,
came
yeah,
out of that. Yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So this again, they were able to record motion and play it back. It was, it was in Popular Science, which everybody in the machine shop read. And no doubt this, or though they could have found out in other ways, was it. Wow. So how do we figure that out? You guys could figure it out. We need to do that. We need to record motion and play motion back.
Wow, that's unreal.
So that was a huge eureka moment, and I was in heaven when
Very
I found
cool.
that out.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, when Walt introduced the Enchanted Tiki Room at Disneyland, it really changed the park experience, and it set a new
Yes.
precedent for storytelling through technology, as we're talking about, especially with the introduction of the audio animatronics. It was one of Walt's personal passion projects, and he was incredibly proud of what the team accomplished. But based on your research, what do you think Walt's reaction would be to how that original innovation has evolved into the animatronics and immersive technology we see in the Disney parks today?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't. He's not here, but he was. But we do know that he was. He loved technology, and he was unbelievably excited about where it could take us. He was not a dystopian. He believed in that the future could be amazing if we just willed it. He was incredibly optimistic about that. For him, technology was not threatening but exciting. So, where it's gotten to today, I think he would be amazed and delighted and baffled and thrilled. And in fact, from the earliest days of the Golden Horseshoe Review, which was a huge deal back in the day, everybody had to see that. He was thinking, this is a show that everybody needs to see, but dang, there's a limitation in human beings because they have to be paid, they have to be fed, they have to take breaks, they get tired, they can't put on more than 3 shows a day, or I don't even know how many it was. So he dreamed of the day when autonomous performers could just keep going and not ask for a parking spot or a pay raise, and put on a really good show. If you think about it, all of his animated characters were not real.
Not real, right?
And they could put on a performance that he could control, or his team could control, down to the arch of an eyebrow. So the idea of an autonomous 3-dimensional performer that could do that was magic to him. So yeah, the technology has gotten insane and reached an uncanny valley, and I think he would be excited and delighted. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Thank you to Tennessee Bear. He says, I just bought a copy of Ken's book, but I'll need to go and watch the whole show later. He's got to run. Thank you. He says thank you to you and to us. So Tennessee Bear, Tim.
Thank you, Tennessee Bear.
We appreciate you. Tim's a good guy there. Let's get over here and talk about this for a minute. I'm curious. Here. We're going to stay on the historical now and then type of perspective. This attraction began as a theatrical dining experience. We referenced that earlier in the day, the initial concepts that blended entertainment and hospitality, something that was originally connected directly to Walt Disney's childhood imagination, then in course involving WED, which we see up there on the screen, and later WDI as well. Ken, from your perspective and the research you've done, how has Disney been able for nearly 70 years for this attraction to keep it relevant for new generations and guests with the adaptations and adjustments? And what do you think made it strong enough as a concept to be adapted and shared around globally around the world?
That is a tricky question. That is not. That is a big pool of gray, because some of what you said, I would push back a little bit on. there was a very long period of time where the Tiki Room wasn't. I mean, you could argue it's not relevant now. Um, it's had a revived sense of appreciation, but the whole tiki movement, the actual attraction itself, went out of favor for a long time. And in fact, while I was writing the book, I was thinking, anytime now they could take this thing out, for whatever reason. Um, because it's just not cool anymore. It's not hip, and they've made adjustments to it. They've cut out to it over the years. They've cut out a number. It's shorter. It's zippier.
Right.
They've cut out chorus lines and jokes. It used to be 17 minutes. Now I think it's about 10.
It's about 10. Yeah.
Uh, so uh, so that was kind of a huge fire under my hiney while I was writing the book. Is I want in any sort of work of art, you want to wave the flag and say, pay attention to this, everybody, because it's really, really special. And if I tell you this, this, and this, and this, maybe you won't leave after 5 minutes or 3 minutes. You actually might respect it. So it has been very iffy. But thank God it's still there, because it's one of the very, very few things still left at the park that that is, you know, Walt's sort of love and sensibility,
And
where
touched.
Walt's love and sensibility still is part of.
Yeah.
That's really rare at the park, and it's becoming more and more rare as we move forward. So and what if there is something at the park that is a work of art, like a legitimate pop work, masterwork, which I would argue the Tiki Room is. What do you do about that if the audiences stop going? It's still a work of art,
Right.
in the same way that you may go into an art museum and see a piece of art on the wall and not give it a second thought, but it's still incredibly important. End of sentence. There's a problem. So it has gone in and out of relevance. Thank God it still has its audience. The technology has marched forward so much that, quite frankly, the Tiki Room tech is incredibly quaint
Outdated.
and limited in comparison, but
Mhm.
it's still charm in buckets, and it still was created by some of the best in the bunch, and it's worthy of being preserved. But yeah, why is it still there? Because again, maybe a resurgence in the love of sort of tiki culture and the love of kitsch and the love of Walt, and now we've got Disney adults who I do think have the mindset of someone who's able to appreciate something a little older. Um,
Mhm.
but they'd always shout in Imagineering, because they have to keep things relevant. They absolutely have to
Yes.
keep things relevant. That Disneyland is not a museum. That things need to change. That is all true. But then, are there things at Disneyland that should be untouchable?
Mhm.
Maybe.
That's a big question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that Ken didn't see
Mhm.
or hear any of the questions before we started, so I'm glad that Ken saw the fishing
Yeah.
hook I threw out and went right with it, because that's exactly kind of where I wanted to go. It's kind of frustrating, the point of the historical nature of this, that sometimes people don't realize what they have until Disney says, I'm taking it away. I've been going to Disney myself for 25, 30 years consecutively,
Yeah.
consistently. I never saw people line up for Dinosaur, yet the minute Disney said they're taking it away, it had a 3 hour wait. So, it's one of those things where
Yeah.
I hope people use your book to appreciate the relevance of what this is, the historical faction of what it is, the fact that Walt did it. And there's so much information in here, guys. I hope you grab that as well. So,
Yeah. And it's personal to Walt. I mean, again, I would say if you really want to know Walt, check out the Tiki Room. You'll get a good idea of who Walt was, and the sensibility of its jokes and its pacing and its cornballness and its structure. It's like sitting down with Walt when you go in that room. I think of it as a sacred space. That's just me. It feels that important to me.
great.
Yep, I'm 100% on board with that. But one of the remarkable parts of the story is how quickly everything had to come together.
Yes.
He brought in the
At the very
Sherman
end,
Brothers. Yeah, Sherman Brothers created the song, and finding the perfect performers also in
Right.
Wally Bogue, Bolton Burley, Ernie Newton, Thurl Ravenscroft. What's fascinating is that many of these individuals would go on to play instrumental roles in other Disney
That's right.
attractions.
That's
And
right.
Oh, yeah.
several of them
And already
eventually
had,
were
yeah.
recognized as,
Yeah.
they were recognized as Disney legends.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what I want to know is, from your perspective, are you surprised that something assembled so quickly brought together such historically important talent within Disney history?
The main point I would make in regards to that may not specifically answer the question, but I think it's an important one. The Tiki Room, for the longest period of time, was, again, a restaurant experience. It wasn't a show. It did not have
Mhm.
a masters of ceremonies.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't have anybody announcing the next number. The birds with Walt's decree did not sing words. That came later. They just tweeted. And the show was shorter. It was meant to be a beguiling sort of happening while you were
Mm-hmm.
eating. It was not meant to be a quote unquote show.
Okay.
That obviously changed over time, and I walk you through that long process throughout the book. But again, it was just a happening, um, and it wasn't until sort of the tail end of it, for various reasons, where at the very last minute, where it was shaped into a much more um, traditional show with
Mm-hmm.
masters of ceremonies, with actual vocalizing from the birds, um, uh, and so that came together really fast. And also the Sherman Brothers, they were brought in very last minute to um, to write a song that explained it all. Again, the whole opening Tiki 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 Room song, that's not how the show began. That's not how the happening began. It actually happened with the lights dimming and the birds tweeting out a beautiful Offenbach number, as if the room were slowly waking up from a slumber. Um, and played through from beginning to end. That experience ended with rain, lightning, storm, the chanting of the totems as we know it today, and then that was it. Forks down, you're done. Get out of here. Your meals.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you're done. And in that context, quite frankly, the show didn't make sense and was actually kind of sinister. It didn't have
Oh.
a smile on its face. It actually was like kind of a nightmare scenario. Like, what the hell just happened? So that's when the Sherman Brothers were brought in, uh, with the idea that please write a song. We'll throw in some happy jokes, so that we can explain to people from the very beginning, from the very opening number, what they're in for. And that actually solved the majority of the problems. And that was last minute. And with it, the people on the screen, Thurl Ravenscroft, Wally Bogue, and others, they were brought in to be the masters of ceremonies, which the show didn't have before. They were talking early on about at least an offstage announcer announcing the next musical number. That didn't fly, but then they got the masters of ceremonies in. So it went from happening, sinister happening that made no sense, to a full-on show. And then from that point on, well, now maybe not even maybe we don't even need to do this as a restaurant anymore. So there was all these evolutionary steps. Jen, now long lost your question, but I think I think these people were part of the park. So Wally Bogue, say, who voiced Jose and actually wrote some of the preliminary scripts, and helped sort of shape the banter. He was over at the Golden Horseshoe, so he knew a thing or two about sort of comedy timing, and how to shape a show. So he was there. So of course, like, bring him over. Thurl Ravenscroft was pretty well the voice of Disneyland at the time.
Yeah,
Going
everywhere.
forward, his voice was everywhere, you know. Um, so call him in, and these are all, and everybody knew everybody. So it's like, well, so when it came time to like voice four masters of ceremonies, there was just like it was easy. Boom, bing, bang, bang, bang. We've got our group. Um, um,
Love it.
and from the Tiki Room forward, they continued to make magic at the park and elsewhere. So um, yeah, so
They ended up being very instrumental. That's a great question, Jen,
yeah, yeah.
for all those people.
And in a way, like MGM, though not exactly alike, there was sort of house talent. Like the people that had worked at Disney continued to work at Disney, and you'd hear many of the same voices over and over again because there was a sort of a family atmosphere. And Thurl and the Sherman Brothers and others, and Wally Bogue were certainly a part of that. So it wouldn't just be one project; there'd be others, and they would shine. Yeah.
I love that. Well, your book, Before the Bird Sang, features a foreword written
Yes.
by Brad Bird, the creative
Yes. We
force.
love Brad.
For those who don't know, which should, I'd love to get Brad on this channel one time and talk with him. He's the creative force behind The Incredibles and Ratatouille, who
Yes.
famously began his journey by sending Walt. Many people don't know this. He began his journey by sending a film to Walt Disney Productions as just a 14-year-old, which led
Yeah.
to an apprenticeship with Disney and, of course, the legendary Nine Old Men. Ken, my question to you is, what did it mean to you personally, professionally, to have someone with that kind of creative lineage from the Disney side of it, storytelling for his storytelling legacy, to write the foreword for your book? That's pretty
It
cool.
meant everything. It meant everything. Uh, Brad Bird was my first animation boss
Oh,
on a
wow.
project called Family Dog, which
Okay.
was let's say a 30-minute episode, animated, hand-drawn episode for Amazing Stories, which was an anthology series. Everything was live action, but then this was a Spielberg anthology series based on the Amazing Stories sort of idea. So every week was a separate story or stories. And I guess Steven Spielberg, who was the executive producer, was like, maybe we should do one animated, just a half-hour animated one. And Brad was that guy. So I worked on that, and that was my first job out of school.
Wow.
So, and then I later worked with Brad on The Simpsons for a while. And I'm Brad's biggest. I can't imagine him. Like I love what Brad stands for. I love his sensibility. I love how he approaches work. I am astounded by his sort of his vision and his talent and his ability to look at projects in the macro, to know the entire world he's working with,
Hmm.
and his ability to also work with the micro, which is things down to the turn of a head or a blink or an expression. So I love Brad. So I was at a party, an animation party that always happened every year, and saw Brad, and I was in the throes of writing the book, and I just said, and I just threw it out there. I was like, Brad, I got this book project, and I would love you to write the forward if you could. And he's like, sure, man, I'll do it. And you never know if he's just been drinking too much beer or whatever, or he really meant it. But I was like, I'm going to follow up on this. So years later, I'm like, Brad, you're on. You want to do this? And of course, before you decide yes or no, I'll send you a copy of the book before you decide to write the forward. And I had been writing in a vacuum, so no one had read the manuscript, but I sent it off to Brad. Um, and his wonderful, beautiful, lovely wife, Liz, texted me one morning. And again, this is in the context of no one has ever seen the manuscript. I
Hmm.
thought it was good. I'm pretty proud of it. I think it's good. But yeah, she sent me a text going, Brad, just saying, Brad's been reading your book and he absolutely loves it, with many exclamation points after that. And I remember breaking down. Like this was emotional for me for sure, because again, I'd been working in a vacuum. I didn't know the value of this yet. And so to get someone like Brad, who I have always respected, to be so into it and love it as much as he seems to, I was like, I'm in heaven. Um, and you're going to laugh, but it wasn't until he was halfway done with the foreword, where I realized, wow, Brad's last name
It's
seems
Berg.
to fit. Um, and I'm coming off as incredibly stupid, but I hadn't even thought of that. I had not thought of that. And I immediately texted Brad. I said, Brad, please, I hope you know that I did not ask you to write the foreword because of your last name. He turned that into a joke later, but it is absolutely true. I asked him to write the foreword because I know, just like I am, we are both sort of equal old school Disneyland dorks. And we've had conversations about that before.
I
So I
love
was
that.
mortified that he might have thought that I
Ah,
asked him just because of his last name.
I
That
love
said, what a great coincidence.
and a great, very well written forward, and
Yeah, yeah,
you could tell that he thoroughly enjoyed your book and the passion that
yeah,
came in that.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. So
Well,
that was a gift that I will never be able to thank him enough for. And his wife Liz, who was, when you're Brad Bird, it's hard to get a hold of someone like Brad, but maybe if you can get through with their wife, you might be lucky. And so she was great,
hmm
and I and
love it,
I love
hmm
Liz. She's an angel.
love it.
Well, speaking of names, I'm going to say a few names here like Rolly Crump, Mark
Mhm.
Davis, Harriet Burns. They all played key roles as Imagineers in pioneering
Yes,
this attraction.
yes, big time.
Yep. So, as you worked through the research for this book, did you have any unique encounters or conversations with any Disney legends or Imagineers that really stood out as memorable to you?
This is slightly embarrassing, but didn't. I was working from the interview records that were out there, and I
Okay.
felt that for the most part, there were no questions left to be asked. That said, I was also incredibly intimidated. Like Mark is no longer with us, but I had a conversation with him when I was a student. Uh, Harriet certainly isn't with us anymore, but she was happy to chat to anybody about the Tiki Room and other projects. So she's got a great record. Would have loved to have spoken to Rolly, but I was intimidated for whatever reason. But also was lucky because Rolly had left an incredible record of interviews, both audio and video, audio, video, and written. So, and a book as well. Um, that said, now that the book is out, I have a wonderful close relationship with Rolly's son. We
Chris.
hang out, Chris. We hang out all the time. I have a connection with Harriet's daughter and granddaughter, who are lovely. And I've met Mark's sort of, I don't know. I think it's her niece. I met her not that long ago, and just a great person as well. So it's in hindsight that I've met these people, and it blows my mind to think that I have this connection. These are my heroes. These people mean everything to me when you write a book like this. So the fact that I have that connection is utterly valuable to me and mind-boggling, and the gift that keeps on giving. And what makes me most proud is I think that they love the fact that in the context of the book that their beloved family members' voices
hmm
are heard, and that their
hmm
contributions are being
Yep.
respected. Because again, we give a lot of it to Walt, and was an amazing visionary, but these people did the hard work,
Absolutely.
and and their sensibilities are as much a part of the experience as Walt's.
I,
So
I I love
so
that.
I love the fact that in hindsight I have that connection, and I have not met Rolly, but I feel like I have a connection to him, say, and Mark and Harriet, and And Wally Bogue's son, Lawrence, who I got to meet as well, he loved the book and was a great supporter. So that just warms my tiny little heart
Yeah,
in ways I
I
can't
love the
even express.
emotion.
Yeah,
I love the emotion in
yeah,
your answer. I could see Jen's reaction
Mhm.
to it
yeah,
as well. And yeah, it's a
yeah,
great
Mhm.
community and lineage of
yeah,
the
yeah,
people below them. And the next time you're having a brunch with Chris, please give
yeah.
him a little hello from Jen and I. We got to
I will.
spend
Yeah,
an evening with him, and you're absolutely right.
yeah,
The
yeah,
magic that of talking with
yeah.
it's just incredible. So that's pretty cool. Well,
And
let's
the talent moves on because Chris is an amazing talent unto himself.
incredible.
All in the Family has done some amazing work, and it is an amazing craftsman, and has put his hand into some really, really amazing projects. So,
Hmm.
um, uh, yeah. So, yeah, I
He's pretty
feel
pretty
so
special.
honored,
Pretty
so
special.
honored to be able
Well,
to call someone like Chris, my friend. Yeah.
that's awesome. I
Nice.
love that. That's a
Yeah.
blessing that you
Mhm.
deserve for the effort you put
Yeah.
into this. I want to talk, from your perspective for a little bit. When you think about the creative influences that help shape your artistic journey, including people like Alfred Hitchcock and Stephen Sondheim, what lessons of
How
inspiration
did
do
you
you?
find that out?
I do research like you wouldn't believe. I do research like you
This
wouldn't
is
believe.
this is terrifying. I there was a box I bought just for keepsakes. And on the front you could put three pictures, little pictures on it.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, I'm going to put my heroes on there. And one was Walt, one was Alfred Hitchcock, and one was Stephen Sondheim. So to see this image come up is terrifying. What
Well,
is
let me ask
happening?
you, since you're sharing with us, what lessons or inspirations do you take from them that still guide you today?
Oh my God. Just cinema in general from Alfred Hitchcock, because he knew a thing or two about playing with an audience, which is what cinema does, and he was the
Hmm.
first person that could actively express it. If you're a film student, the Hitchcock Truffaut interview it's like the Bible. So Hitchcock's work is is amazing to me because it's basically like, wait till I pull this magic trick over on the audience. Um, and this is how I'm going to do it. And Stephen Sondheim, uh, just because his work is such a has such complexity,
Yes,
and um, and it's not about joy of love or misery of love. Everything is sort of right in this middle ground of like, um, it's about it's about ambivalence. It's about not really knowing, and you really study Sondheim's work, and it's got that complexity to it. It's
you
not
got to
it's
think
not
a
an
little bit.
easy listen
Yeah,
to. It's earthy and complicated, and he was a he was a nerd about puzzles, and so in a sense, even though he's writing music about emotions and connections, they are puzzles to figure out. So I'm like, what's going on? Someone did the research because there's just two of my heroes up on the screen. I yeah, that
we
I
we we do what we
yeah,
can.
that's terrifying. That is a terror I will not. I am baffled by.
Jed, I'll throw it over to you as I'm laughing.
I think this next question will have an answer that many of in our chat would be interested in hearing. Your book, The Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room Before the Bird Sang Words, it's incredibly detailed, informative, and just a fantastic read for Disney fans
Ah, thank you,
and
Jen.
historians alike.
Yep,
After
I
putting
agree.
so much time and passion into documenting this attraction's story, are there any other Walt Disney attractions that have sparked your interest as possible subjects for a future book?
Well, of course, Superstar Limo. That has to have a big book behind it. That is like that should still be there. It is a work of art. Why did they take it out? I need to interview everybody that had anything to do with that so that they can be celebrated.
Yes.
Well,
I love it.
oh God. I have some ideas, but after working on it, like I just, oh my God, I feel like, it took 6 years of writing while I had a day job as well.
Right.
Um,
Mhm.
and it's hard work crafting it, and then 10 years of really mulling through it and kind of figuring out what the structure was going to be. There's probably, there's probably another book in me, shorter. I'm thinking of some ideas. I was talking
Awesome.
about one of the ideas to Kevin yesterday, and he was like, "Yes, you need to do that." Maybe I'll do that. I don't want to share it
No,
necessarily
you don't
because
need
then
to.
it might be
No, you
stolen.
don't have to.
No.
It might be taken away from me,
As
which
long as
actually
you
was
as long
that
as you
was
promise
one
to
of my
come back here.
greatest fears. Oh, well, there you go. Of course. That was my greatest fear writing the book is like, is someone going to actually write this book before me because it needs to be written? And there's a story related to that because for a little while I thought this wonderful woman by the name of um, 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 Character Smothers, Marcy Character Smothers.
I can't.
I
I'm
thought she
lost.
was going to write a book on the Tiki Room, and she was until she wasn't. But when I found out that she might be, I had a horrible panic attack in the middle of Pasadena and thought, I'm giving up. I'm not going to do this anymore. But it ended up working out.
Very much.
Well, I want to remind
So
everybody
yeah,
with Ken's work, and we've been dropping links throughout the night, that you can find Ken over on Instagram, over there at Tiki Room 1963. If you want to keep up
yeah,
with him and everything that's going, or send him some comments. His website,
love it
which
too.
we've been dropping in there as well. Welcome to our Tropical Hideaway is a great website, and I love the graphics over there. So awesome, so awesome. Of course, we talked about you can get the book over on Amazon, but you can also get it on Ken's website with a hardcover version, the autographed copy, which I would highly encourage. I've got to work to get one of those because we have a military charity that we work with, and I try to get something from all of our guests that we can give away
I'll
to.
send you. I have not sent you anything? I'll
I
send
went
you
and bought. I
that.
bought your book, but I was going to buy another one if because I love. We work with a charity out of California called Semper Fi and the Americas Fund, and it was started years ago by a military spouse when soldiers came back. I believe it was during Desert Storm that the VA was just not taking care of certain things. So they are now a full 501c charity. We are very proud to say over on our channel that in 2025 we raised $13,000 for the charity. And we did our first event earlier this year. We raised already 3,100 this year, and I try to incorporate all of our guests in it along the way and make sure that we have something. So I'd love to get an autographed copy that we could put into there, and it would go to somebody that would donate it to the charity. So it's
I'm
it's a
happy.
great
No,
thing.
reach out to me and we'll get this done. Oh, of
Awesome. Well,
course.
I wasn't expecting that, but thank you very much, Ken.
Yeah, we'll
I
get this
truly
done. Of
appreciate it.
course.
Okay.
Very nice.
You can keep up
No
on
worries.
Kindle. Kindle is obviously through Amazon, everybody. And of course, he just recently did the audiobooks not that long ago. You can get on there with Audible and keep up with everything with Audible, which is a part of the Amazon platform and everything there. And I also want to remind everybody that you'll be able to keep up with Ken if you want. Coming up this April 16th, not that far away, it's coming close. He will be at the Arizona Tiki Oasis on April 16th to the 19th. And then in June, he's going to be at the Anaheim Public Library on a June date to be determined.
How do you know all of this? How do you know?
I do
Like,
research.
how do you? I don't even know this. How are you
I
doing
don't
this?
even know this. Well, now you do.
I'm actually double checking to make sure. I'm sure you're like, wow, what's the? Yeah. So yeah, I'm giving. Yeah, it looks like I'm giving the talk at Arizona Tiki Oasis on the 17th.
There you go.
I'm giving a talk at the Hilbert Museum on the 24th.
No, they didn't. That wasn't out there. Tell them they need to promote it.
That wasn't out there. I just found that out, I guess, today or last night. So that's
Okay.
cool. And then what was that? Oh, and then in June.
Public Library for
Maybe June.
Anaheim.
Yeah. Oh, nice. I'm moving forward. Yeah, on the 6th. Yeah.
Just to let you know,
I don't know.
Ken, when
You're scaring the hell out of me.
when we interviewed Chris, literally backstage after the show, he said to me, "You know more about me and my dad than I think I know about me and my dad." So
I'm terrified. Oh my God! When Hitchcock and Sondheim popped up, I'm like, this is chilling. This is terrifying.
Jen and I take a lot of pride in trying
to. Oh
my
God! I hope you didn't find any naked pictures of me that you're going to post somewhere.
No, I don't have any of those. I gave them all to Zippy.
Okay, good.
So there we go.
Okay, good.
At this point, we're at the point of our show where we throw it to our guests, and we do it. So we throw it to you first. It's a final thought of the night. It's anything you want to throw out, anything you want to highlight. Your final thought for this evening.
Oh, yeah. The final thought for this evening was kind of what was mulling through my brain when we started that, and then we talked about a little bit. The idea, well, it's three. Okay, no. Oh, yeah, okay. Wow. I'm glad. Yeah, okay. I'm ready for this.
Okay.
So again, context is everything. And if you roll back the clock to 1963 and try to imagine, again, these are people that have not seen, that the Pirates of the Caribbean, the Haunted Mansion are not things. It's a Small World, Lincoln, they're not there. People walking into the Tiki Room for the first time, not knowing what they're in for. They bought a ticket. It's new. It's weird. Mm-hmm. And just how utterly mind-blowing the experience was. They believed it for the most part. Like, they suspended their disbelief. Let's put it that way. How magical and transporting and utterly unlike anything they'd ever seen before. So that's a thought. The idea of a bunch of people coming together to do this thing that Brad said, and I've been parroting him ever since, no pun intended. The idea that these earlier Imagineers and Walt were cultivating wonder. They were creating surprise. When I do my talks, I talk about that. The word surprise, that to do that, to take an audience and literally have them gasp and go, I didn't see that coming. And not only did I not see that coming, how are they doing that? Followed by, I give up, I'm just in the moment. And this magic is swirling around me in 3 dimensions, and I'm just going to give in. So these earlier Imagineers were learning about what it took to cultivate magic, to create surprise with an audience. They were learning that is their North Star moving forward on every project that followed. How do we surprise an audience? And that is really, really hard work. And it is rarely done successfully. And I also mentioned the fact that, so you go on the Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean. They are wonderful experiences, and they do have surprises in them. But how many? Maybe 2, 3, 4. But I count 10 of them. 10 solid moments in the Enchanted Tiki Room that audiences from 1963 did not see coming. One after the other, that all build upon each other. So my final thought is just that the idea of cultivating wonder, how difficult it is, and thank God we still have people in this business, both at Disney and Universal and elsewhere, who are working working hard to do that kind of work.
Yes.
That requires engineering and imagination and really, really respecting an audience.
Love that.
and wanting to give them that thing, and can
Hmm.
can hardly wait to see the looks on their faces.
Love that.
That's ultimately beyond the business and the money and the fast passes and the parking and the whatever. That's that's the North Star, and it's to be respected and admired. And I think we're in a good, yeah. And I maybe finish with, when we're in a good place right now, because Disney Imagineering has something that it hasn't had for years right now, which is competition. Universal is coming for them,
Yeah.
and gleefully, and they are willing to spend top dollar to do it, and that helps the industry, and that is a gift to all of us who are into sort of immersive, transportive environments, and shows, and magic, and wonder. So yeah, I think we need to remind ourselves of that, and that we're in a good place right now for that.
We're in a good place.
Yeah.
And also maybe someone at the top forthcoming here in the next couple of weeks that hopefully will follow in Eisner's footsteps to get behind the
Yeah.
Imagineers and the
Yeah.
creators and the animators and the artists that tell the stories. I really hope that
Yeah.
as,
Yeah.
as well. So
Yeah.
Jen, I'm going to throw it
Yeah.
over to you for a final thought tonight of sitting down with Mr. Ken Bruce.
There was one thing that you said tonight that kind of hit me. And that
Oh
was when
dear.
you said that Disneyland is not a museum. You made that comment. Disneyland is
Yeah.
not a museum. And that things have to evolve in the parks and side of keeping Walt's memory alive, especially the things that Walt, everything that he touched, everything that he dreamed up, everything that he created. And so that's why I'm just so happy that you've written this book to keep that memory of something that he created alive, because
Yeah.
we don't know how long we're still going to have this attraction.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
with this whole evolution of the theme parks and keeping it relevant and all of those comments, yada yada.
Yeah.
I'd rather keep it forever. But we've seen it with other attractions that are the dust. Like we will never go on
Yeah.
Tom Sawyer Island again, and that
Yeah.
breaks
Yeah.
my heart because that was
Yeah.
another Walt thing. So I guess that's how this whole interview tonight has affected me in thinking. We need to talk about and celebrate and embrace these attractions
Yeah.
that were Walt's babies,
Yeah.
because we don't know how much longer we're going to have them. So thank you very much for
Yeah. Yeah.
putting your sweat and your tears and your time into keeping this attraction alive. So thank
Thank
you,
you
and
so
thank you
much.
for coming on
That's,
tonight to share it with us.
my pleasure. It was a delight to spend time with you too, and yeah, to share this story. And hopefully, don't buy the book for me. I would say buy it because it's a great story. That is what I
Hmm.
discovered in writing it. I knew it would. I had an idea that it would, but
Yeah.
as I continued to write it, it became clear that this is a worthy story that should be told, and it's it's a yeah it's a
That's a good
it's
one.
a
Hmm.
it is about the blood, sweat, and tear of creating wonder. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I applaud Jen and her comment there. That was fantastic. Obviously,
Thank you,
your
Jen.
your recap at the end was amazing, and it's a great transition what you just said because to where I'm going to go, and where I'm going to go is first, obviously, thank you to Ken for having somebody reach out to him out of nowhere on an email saying, "Do you want to do an interview?" and being comfortable enough to say, "Yeah, I'll come on and join us." We've been talking about this interview on our multiple shows for many weeks. A lot of friends coming out today. I know we'll have a lot of rewatches for the UK and Asia as we always do the next day, and of course on the podcast platform. I want to also acknowledge the fact that. All the links are going to be in the description of the video. So if you want to get a copy of this book and want to take a read on it, I would encourage you to do so. What I would tell anybody that's out there is you can look on Ken's mantle or his bookcase or wherever you want to look at the two awards that he has, the two Emmys for animation and all that he has. But all you need to do is look to his book to see that Ken is a true storyteller. Ken, wherever you
Oh,
are. No,
You're
Ken
too
is a
kind.
Ken is a true storyteller at heart. We do this show because we want to tell the stories of those people that taught us
Yeah.
the stories. Ken's book does that. It opens up and takes you into another world and a deeper look into everything of the Enchanted Tiki Room. And I'm telling you, if it not for that, if not for some of the ups and downs, if not for some of the incredible names of at the time were just Disney employees that are now reverenced as Disney legends and Disney people of reverence, that we wouldn't have half the things that we have today. So I am so grateful for Ken's efforts in this book. It so tells the story of 10 years of hard work, and I can see the pride in him when he reads it. I could see the pride in Mr. Bird as he wrote this, and I saw it with Jen and myself as we prepared for this interview. So if you do that next book, whatever it may be, please keep us in mind because we would definitely like to talk with you about that. And
Absolutely.
as you have as we always tell all of our artists or author friends, as you have any big events come up where you go and you do any of these big events where you're doing a book signing or a share out or anything, if you send us a slick, we have multiple Disney shows that we do per week, and we'll gladly share it out for you. We don't want anything for it. We just love to help our friends and get it out there a little bit more, because you never know where one of the people watching our channel or watching our podcast might be close to that event, so we could share that out for you. So thank you, Ken.
Will do. Thank you so much
So
for that.
absolutely.
Thank
If
you.
you could just hang tight for 1 second, we'll finalize the show, and then we'll come right back and chat backstage for just a minute.
Perfect.
Jen,
Thank you.
another wow, right?
Hi,
Another.
Pete. Hi,
Bye,
Jen.
Ken. Hang tight, buddy. Another wow, right? Another wow.
I know. I know.
You know, his charisma, his energy, his knowledge of what he did, his passion for what he wanted to do. The fact that hold on, Ken.
Yeah?
I'm breaking my rule. I'm coming back in. I got to ask the question.
Oh, dear.
Okay. How cool is it
I'm here.
how cool is it that you worked on two of the most iconic, just creative things with Family Guy and The Simpsons? We didn't even touch base, but I know if I didn't ask, I'll have about 8 people send me a text later. So it had to be something incredible for you.
I worked on the first season of The Simpsons, and at the end of that season, again, we didn't know where the show was going to go. We did hear that it was going to get picked up, but I kid you not, I sat in a room full of people going, well, where else can they take this thing? We didn't have any, like, we've just told all the stories in one season that you could possibly tell. That's where our brain was.
Oh my
And
Lord.
of course, now 6,433 seasons later, somehow they kept it going. I moved on to a film called Fern Gully because I had not worked on a feature. I was young. And so I wanted to get that under my belt and left The Simpsons because I sort of felt like, well, now that I know how to draw Bart and Marge, I need to do something. But had I stuck on, it would have been a solid gig for a while.
Yeah.
And it's not like they didn't want me back, which was nice. And then Family Guy is like what I'm doing now, and it will probably be the last gig that I have before I probably retire. I love the show. I love the crew. It actually, I don't know how, like it makes me laugh, but for some people that may not be a good thing, because it's a little, it's Family Guy. But yeah, I love the writing. I love what they're doing, and they couldn't be a better team. And so I'm loving every minute. I'm working on that thing now. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for doing that. I know it wasn't planned, but I knew, like, my chat already reacted. Exactly, Pete. They definitely wanted me to ask that question. So hang tight for me in a minute, and then I'll come back and, we'll talk about Seth and all that kind of great stuff.
Perfect. Yeah.
This was maybe one of the best we've done. Just incredible.
Mm-hmm. I love when there's that deep Walt connection because, like I said in my final thought, we got to keep that alive. We've got to keep it documented because we don't know how long things like that are going to be around.
Absolutely. And the people too.
With the changing of, yep, exactly. So another great interview. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I know I did. Ken is great. So much fun. I thought it was a great night.
We've got an author coming up on one of our upcoming episodes, but our next episode is with an artist. Jen, we're going to have Gary Pilla come on. Look at that picture he did right there of Walt and Mickey together. Gary, he's an artist, but he's also a sculptor. We've featured some of his sculptures before. This week, this interview, we're going to feature his artwork coming up on the channel, and that will be in just a couple weeks. So I'm really excited. The best thing is stay tuned. Make sure you're following. If you're listening on the podcast, come over on YouTube. Keep us with us there. Give a like on the podcast with all the stars and all that stuff, and a follow. So, Jen, it's been my honor to sit here and have some Disney dialogues with you tonight. Until the next time, I can't wait to see you then when we get to chat with another influential person from the Disney community. Good night, dear.
Good night.